What if the secret to making someone fall deeply in love isn't chasing them, impressing them, or trying to become someone you're not? What if it's something much simpler and much more powerful? Real love grows when a person feels seen, respected, trusted, and safe enough to be themselves. The strongest relationships aren't built through manipulation or mind games. They're built through the small choices we make every day. How we listen, how we communicate, how we support each other, and how we show up when life gets difficult. Because when someone experiences genuine connection with you, they don't just enjoy your presence. They begin to value the relationship itself. OA site 0. One of the most powerful things you can offer another person is not attention, admiration, or constant reassurance. It is the feeling of being genuinely seen. There is a difference between looking at someone and actually seeing them. Looking notices what is on the surface. Seeing pays attention to what exists underneath. The effort, the fears, the dreams, the struggles, the small victories that nobody else notices. And when a man experiences that kind of connection, something important begins to happen. He stops feeling like he has to perform to earn your affection. He begins to feel that he can simply be himself. In a world where people are constantly being evaluated, compared, and judged, being understood can feel incredibly rare. A man may spend his entire day trying to prove that he is capable, successful, strong, dependable, or worthy. He may rarely talk about the pressure he carries because he has learned that vulnerability can feel uncomfortable. But when a woman creates a relationship where he doesn't always have to prove himself, she offers something far more meaningful than praise. She offers emotional connection. This doesn't mean agreeing with everything he says or putting him on a pedestal. It means becoming curious about the person behind his behavior. Instead of immediately judging why he is quiet, ask yourself what might be happening inside him. Instead of assuming that his silence means he doesn't care, create space for conversation. Instead of only celebrating the obvious achievements, notice the effort that went into them. Sometimes the most powerful words aren't complicated. They are simple observations like, "I noticed how hard you worked for that," or "I know that wasn't easy for you," or "I appreciate the way you handled that." These statements communicate something deeper than compliments. They say, "I pay attention to you." And feeling noticed can strengthen emotional intimacy. But there is an important distinction here. Making someone feel seen does not mean becoming responsible for their emotional needs. You don't have to constantly reassure a man, solve his problems, or sacrifice your own needs to make him feel important. Healthy connection is mutual. You see him, and he sees you. You listen to him, and he listens to you. You recognize his feelings, and he recognizes yours. This is where many relationships become confused. People sometimes believe that love is about giving someone everything they want. It isn't. Love is about creating a relationship where both people can bring their authentic selves into the room. You can care deeply about someone while still maintaining boundaries. You can support him without rescuing him. You can admire him without losing yourself. When a man realizes that a woman isn't interested only in what he can provide, but genuinely interested in who he is, the relationship can take on a different meaning. He may begin sharing things he normally keeps private. He may become more comfortable discussing his ambitions, disappointments, insecurities, and hopes. And those conversations can create a form of intimacy that physical attraction alone cannot create. The deeper lesson is that people tend to value relationships where they feel accepted without feeling controlled. That's why trying to manipulate someone's emotions is ultimately weaker than creating genuine connection. You don't need to make someone jealous to become valuable. You don't need to disappear to create obsession. You don't need to constantly prove your worth. Instead, focus on being present. Listen when he speaks. Remember the things that matter to him. Notice when he is struggling. Celebrate his progress. Ask meaningful questions. And, most importantly, allow him to see you too, because love becomes powerful when two people stop performing for each other and start understanding each other. And that is the real secret. Don't try to become unforgettable by demanding someone's attention. Become meaningful by creating a relationship where both people feel genuinely known, respected, and valued. When someone feels seen, they don't simply feel attracted to your presence. They begin to associate your presence with something deeply human. The feeling that they can finally put down the mask and be themselves. Respect is one of the foundations of deep, lasting love, But respect does not mean putting someone above yourself or agreeing with everything they say. It means recognizing the other person as a complete human being with their own thoughts, abilities, boundaries, responsibilities, and dreams. When a woman respects a man, she communicates something powerful. I value who you are, and I trust you to be responsible for your own life. At the same time, genuine respect requires her to value herself just as strongly. That balance is what makes respect meaningful. Many people confuse love with control. They believe that if they care about someone, they should constantly monitor them, correct them, or influence every decision they make. But love becomes stronger when there is room for individuality. A healthy relationship doesn't require two people to become identical. It allows two individuals to remain themselves while choosing to build something together. Think about what happens when someone constantly feels criticized. Even if the criticism is presented as concern, repeated negative judgment can make a person defensive. Instead of feeling connected, they begin protecting themselves. They may stop sharing their thoughts because they expect an argument. They may become hesitant to make decisions because they fear disapproval. Over time, emotional closeness can disappear. Respect creates the opposite environment. It allows people to disagree without destroying each other's dignity. A woman can say, "I see this differently," without saying, "You are stupid." She can challenge an idea without attacking the person. She can express disappointment without humiliating him. That distinction is incredibly important because conflict is inevitable in every meaningful relationship. The goal isn't to eliminate disagreement. The goal is to learn how to disagree while still protecting the relationship. There is also a powerful form of respect that often goes unnoticed. Respecting someone's effort. A man may not always succeed. He may make mistakes, experience setbacks, or struggle to reach a goal. Genuine respect doesn't require pretending that failure is success. Instead, it recognizes the courage involved in trying, learning, adapting, and continuing. Imagine a man pursuing a difficult goal. He doesn't need someone who constantly tells him that he's perfect. He may need someone who can honestly say, "I know this is difficult, but I believe you can figure out your next step." That kind of encouragement doesn't remove responsibility from him. It reminds him that he doesn't have to face every challenge alone. But there is another side to this principle. A woman should never abandon her own standards simply to make a man feel respected. If she constantly tolerates behavior that violates her values, that isn't healthy respect. It is self-abandonment. Real respect includes boundaries. You can love someone and still say no. You can care about someone and refuse to accept dishonesty, disrespect, manipulation, or repeated broken promises. You can believe in someone's potential while recognizing that they are responsible for their own choices. This is where self-respect becomes incredibly attractive, not as a strategy to make someone fall in love, but because it creates emotional clarity. When you know your values, you don't have to constantly chase approval. You don't have to change your personality every time someone becomes distant. You don't have to sacrifice your identity to keep a relationship alive. And this creates a healthier dynamic between two people. Instead of one person becoming dependent on the other for validation, both people can contribute from a place of strength. They can support each other without controlling each other. They can celebrate each other's successes without feeling threatened by them. They can maintain separate interests while still sharing a meaningful life. The deepest lesson is simple. Respect isn't something you perform to make someone love you. It is something you practice because you believe every person deserves dignity, including yourself. If you want a relationship that lasts, don't focus only on chemistry. Pay attention to how you treat each other when you're frustrated, disappointed, or afraid. That's where respect becomes visible. Anyone can be loving when everything is going perfectly. Real character appears when circumstances become difficult. When a woman can communicate honestly, maintain her boundaries, appreciate a man's strengths, challenge him respectfully, and still remain grounded in her own identity, she creates something far more valuable than temporary attraction. She creates a relationship where both people can grow, and that is what deep love needs. Not one person shrinking so the other can feel bigger, but two people standing confidently beside each other, choosing every day to value, challenge, support, and respect one another. Real emotional connection begins when two people feel safe enough to communicate honestly. Attraction can bring people together, but communication determines whether they can truly understand one another. When a woman creates an environment where a man can speak openly without immediately feeling attacked, mocked, dismissed, or punished, she creates an opportunity for deeper intimacy. Emotional safety doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations. It means learning how to have those conversations without turning them into battles. Many people believe communication simply means talking. But communication is much more than speaking. It is listening, asking questions, observing emotions, choosing the right moment, and trying to understand before trying to be understood. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is slow down and listen instead of immediately preparing your response. Imagine a man coming home after a difficult day. He seems quiet and distant. One reaction might be to immediately assume something is wrong with the relationship. Another might be to demand an explanation. But a more emotionally intelligent response could be, "You seem like you've had a difficult day. Do you want to talk about it?" That simple question gives him a choice. He can open up when he is ready, while still knowing that someone noticed. This doesn't mean ignoring unhealthy behavior or pretending everything is fine. Emotional safety is not the absence of accountability. It is the presence of respect while accountability takes place. A healthy relationship needs room for difficult truths. If something hurts you, say it. If you need something, communicate it. If a boundary has been crossed, explain it clearly. But instead of attacking someone's character, focus on the behavior and its impact. There is a major difference between saying, "You never care about me," and saying, "When you stopped responding without explaining what was happening, I felt dismissed and disconnected." The second statement creates an opportunity for dialogue. The goal isn't to win an argument. The goal is to understand each other. This principle becomes especially important when emotions become intense. When people feel threatened, they often stop listening. They become defensive, sarcastic, silent, or aggressive. That's why timing matters. Sometimes the most mature decision is to pause a conversation and return to it when both people are calm enough to actually hear each other. There is strength in saying, "I care about this conversation, and I don't want us to hurt each other while we're upset. Let's take some time and continue when we're calmer." That isn't weakness. It is emotional discipline. Another important part of emotional safety is consistency. If someone never knows whether honesty will result in affection, anger, withdrawal, or punishment, they may eventually stop being honest. Trust grows when people learn that difficult conversations can happen without destroying the relationship. But emotional safety must also work both ways. A woman should create space for a man's feelings, but she deserves the same space for hers. She shouldn't become the only emotionally responsible person in the relationship. If she is always listening while her own concerns are ignored, that's not healthy communication. Real intimacy requires reciprocity. The deepest relationships are often built through ordinary conversations. Asking about someone's dreams, remembering what they're worried about, talking about fears that aren't easy to express, discussing what each person wants from the future, sharing disappointment without turning it into blame, celebrating progress, apologizing when necessary. These moments may not look dramatic, but they build trust one interaction at a time. And here's the important lesson. Don't use communication as a technique to control someone's emotions. Don't say the perfect words simply to make someone chase you. Speak because you want to understand and be understood. Authentic communication is powerful because it doesn't require manipulation. When a man realizes that he can tell a woman what he really thinks and feels, and that she can do the same with him, the relationship begins to move beyond surface-level attraction. It becomes a partnership. Because love isn't proven by how perfectly two people communicate when everything is easy. It is revealed by how they communicate when something is difficult. When two people can tell the truth without cruelty, listen without immediately becoming defensive, establish boundaries without threats, and work through disagreements without trying to destroy each other, they create something rare. They create emotional safety. And when emotional safety exists, people don't have to spend all their energy protecting themselves. They can finally spend that energy building the relationship. One of the most meaningful things you can do for someone you love is recognize not only who they are today, but who they are becoming. Every person has a story, a past, strengths, weaknesses, dreams, fears, and a vision of the life they want to create. Sometimes the people closest to us see our potential before we fully see it ourselves. When a woman genuinely appreciates a man's growth, effort, courage, and progress, She can become an important source of encouragement in his life, not because she is responsible for changing him, but because she recognizes the journey he is already taking. There is a major difference between appreciating someone's growth and trying to redesign them. Appreciation says, I see the work you're putting into your life. Control says, you need to become the person I want. Those two approaches may look similar from the outside, but emotionally they are completely different. One gives encouragement. The other creates pressure. Imagine a man who has decided to improve his career, become more disciplined, learn a new skill, take better care of his responsibilities, or become more emotionally mature. The process may be slow. There may be setbacks. He may not immediately produce impressive results. But when someone notices the effort, it can reinforce his sense that the work matters. Sometimes a simple sentence can carry tremendous meaning. I've noticed how much you've grown. It isn't saying that everything is perfect. It is acknowledging progress. And progress matters because meaningful change rarely happens overnight. People often underestimate how powerful recognition can be. Most individuals spend much of their lives hearing what they are doing wrong. At work, they may receive criticism. From society, they may feel pressure to achieve more. From themselves, they may hear an endless internal voice saying they aren't good enough yet. A relationship can become a place where a person doesn't have to constantly defend their worth. But appreciation should be specific and genuine. Instead of empty praise, notice something real. I admire how you handled that difficult situation. You didn't give up when things became complicated. I've noticed you're communicating differently now. These observations communicate attention, and attention is one of the building blocks of connection. At the same time, supporting someone's growth doesn't mean excusing unhealthy behavior. If a man repeatedly makes promises but never takes responsibility, simply praising his potential won't create a healthy relationship. Potential is not the same as character. What matters is what someone consistently chooses to do. This is where encouragement becomes powerful when combined with standards. You can believe someone can become better while still expecting them to take responsibility for their actions. You can say, I believe in you, while also saying, this behavior isn't acceptable to me. Those statements can coexist. A healthy relationship doesn't ask one person to carry the other person's entire development. Each person must own their growth. The woman can encourage, support, and appreciate, but the man has to decide whether he will actually do the work. The same principle applies to her. This creates a relationship where both people become contributors rather than rescuers. Instead of one person constantly fixing the other, both people are actively developing themselves. They celebrate each other's progress, learn from setbacks, and create an environment where growth is valued. There's also something beautiful about appreciating someone's future without ignoring their present. You don't love someone only because of who you think they might become. You appreciate who they are now while recognizing that they still have room to grow. And that perspective can transform a relationship. Instead of constantly asking, what are you doing wrong? The question becomes, how can we become better together? That doesn't mean turning the relationship into a self-improvement project. Love still needs laughter, friendship, affection, rest, and ordinary moments. Growth should enhance the relationship, not consume it. The deeper message is that people often become stronger when they feel that someone believes their effort matters. Not because praise magically changes them, but because meaningful encouragement can strengthen connection and motivation. So if you love someone, don't only notice their achievements, notice their effort, notice their courage. Notice the moments when they choose patience instead of anger, responsibility instead of excuses, and growth instead of comfort. And remember to allow yourself to be seen in the same way, because the most powerful relationship isn't one where one person constantly pushes the other toward an imagined ideal. It's one where two people look at each other and say, in their own way, I see who you are, I see how hard you're working, and I respect the person you're becoming. That kind of appreciation doesn't create dependence. It creates partnership. And partnership is where lasting love has the opportunity to grow. One of the most powerful things a woman can bring into a relationship is emotional steadiness. Not perfection, not constant happiness, not pretending that nothing ever goes wrong. Emotional steadiness means creating a relationship where both people can experience difficult moments without turning every disagreement into a crisis. It means choosing honesty over manipulation, clarity over confusion, and connection over unnecessary games. There is a common belief that making someone chase you will make them value you more. People sometimes use jealousy, intentional silence, unpredictable behavior, or emotional withdrawal because they believe these tactics create desire. But even when such strategies get attention, attention isn't the same as love. Someone can become anxious about losing you without actually developing a healthier or deeper relationship with you. Real connection doesn't require emotional chaos. Think about the difference between uncertainty and mystery. Mystery can be attractive because two people are still discovering each other. Uncertainty, however, can become exhausting when someone constantly wonders where they stand. If one day you are affectionate and the next day you deliberately become cold just to see whether someone will chase you, you may create emotional tension, but you are not necessarily creating trust. Healthy love works differently. When a woman communicates clearly, keeps her promises, respects boundaries, and responds to problems with emotional maturity, she creates something valuable: predictability. Predictability may not sound exciting, but in a healthy relationship, it allows trust to grow. When someone knows that your words and actions generally match, they don't have to spend their energy trying to decode you. This doesn't mean you should become emotionally available to someone who treats you poorly. Peace doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. In fact, emotional peace often requires strong boundaries. A woman can calmly say, "I care about you, but I won't continue this conversation while we're insulting each other." She can say, "I want to work through this, but I need honesty." She can say, "I understand that you're upset, but that doesn't make disrespect acceptable. That is not creating drama. That is creating structure." And structure matters because relationships inevitably face difficult moments. Two people will misunderstand each other. They will have different expectations. They will occasionally disappoint each other. The question isn't whether conflict will happen. The question is, what happens after conflict begins? Do you attack the person's character? Do you bring up every mistake they've ever made? Do you threaten to leave every time you don't get your way? Do you intentionally become distant to make them panic? Or do you slow down, communicate, listen, and search for a solution? Emotional maturity is revealed in those moments. A peaceful relationship also doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations. Sometimes, peace requires confrontation. If something is wrong, pretending everything is fine doesn't create harmony. It simply delays the problem. Real peace comes from being willing to address problems honestly and respectfully. There is also a difference between being supportive and becoming someone's emotional caretaker. A woman doesn't need to solve every problem a man has. She doesn't need to carry his responsibilities or constantly regulate his emotions. She can offer compassion while allowing him to take responsibility for his own life. That balance creates something important. Two adults choosing each other rather than two people becoming emotionally dependent on each other for their entire sense of stability. And this is where self-respect becomes essential. You don't need to create jealousy to prove your value. You don't need to disappear to test whether someone cares. You don't need to pretend you're unavailable when you actually want connection. Your value isn't determined by how difficult you make yourself to reach. Instead, let your actions communicate your standards. Be kind, but don't abandon yourself. Be loving, but don't ignore disrespect. Be supportive, but don't become someone's rescuer. Be available for genuine connection, but don't chase someone who repeatedly refuses to meet you halfway. That kind of balance creates peace without sacrificing strength. The deepest lesson is simple. Love should not feel like a constant psychological competition. A relationship isn't supposed to be a battlefield where one person wins and the other loses. It is supposed to be a place where two people can face the challenges of life together. When a woman brings honesty, consistency, emotional maturity, and healthy boundaries into a relationship, she doesn't need to manufacture obsession. She creates something much more valuable: trust. And trust is what allows attraction to become intimacy, intimacy to become connection, and connection to become commitment. The goal isn't to make someone afraid of losing you. The goal is to build something so genuine that both people understand its value and consciously choose to protect it. Romantic attraction can bring two people together, but shared purpose is often what gives a relationship depth and direction. When two people stop asking only, "How do you make me feel?" and begin asking, What can we build together? The relationship can become something much greater than temporary chemistry. Love becomes a partnership, a place where two individuals support each other while creating a life that reflects their values, dreams, and priorities. This doesn't mean a couple needs to have identical ambitions. One person may dream of building a business, while the other wants to pursue a creative career. One may love adventure, while the other prefers stability. Differences don't automatically weaken a relationship. What matters is whether the two people can respect those differences while sharing fundamental values. A relationship becomes meaningful when both people understand what they are working toward. Maybe they want to build a peaceful home. Maybe they want to travel, raise a family, serve their community, become financially responsible, or simply create a life filled with learning and meaningful experiences. The specific goal will be different for every couple. The important part is that the relationship represents something bigger than attraction alone. This is where purpose becomes powerful. When a woman shows genuine interest in building something meaningful together, a man can begin to see the relationship not simply as a source of romance, but as a partnership. He isn't just thinking about how attractive she is or how exciting the relationship feels today. He may begin thinking about what the two of them could accomplish over time. But shared purpose should never become a reason to lose individuality. A healthy partnership isn't two people becoming one person with no separate identity. It is two complete individuals choosing to move in a compatible direction. That distinction matters because dependence can easily be mistaken for closeness. If your entire identity depends on another person, the relationship carries enormous pressure. But when both people have their own interests, friendships, goals, and sense of identity, they can bring something valuable back into the relationship. Imagine two people who spend their lives encouraging each other to grow. She supports his ambitions, and he supports hers. He celebrates her achievements without feeling threatened by them. She celebrates his success without feeling like his progress takes something away from her. They understand that one person's growth can strengthen the partnership rather than weaken it. That kind of relationship creates a powerful environment. It also changes the way couples handle difficult seasons. Every relationship will eventually face uncertainty, disappointment, financial pressure, family challenges, career changes, or personal struggles. When a relationship is built only around excitement, difficult seasons can make people question whether the relationship is still worth having. But when there is a deeper shared purpose, challenges can become problems the couple faces together. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to us?" they can begin asking, "How do we get through this together?" That small change in perspective can transform the relationship. Purpose also requires conversations about values. What does loyalty mean to each person? What does success mean? How should disagreements be handled? What kind of life do they want? What sacrifices are acceptable? What boundaries matter? What kind of environment do they want to create for themselves and the people they care about? These conversations aren't always romantic, but they are deeply important. A strong relationship isn't built by avoiding serious topics. It is built by having the courage to discuss them before they become major problems. And there is another important truth. You cannot manufacture shared purpose with someone who doesn't want partnership. You can invite someone into a meaningful relationship, but you cannot force them to participate. Both people have to choose commitment, responsibility, and growth. That's why the goal shouldn't be to make a man fall deeply in love through techniques or psychological tricks. The healthier goal is to create the conditions where genuine love can grow naturally between two people who are compatible, respectful, and willing to invest in each other. When a woman knows her own values, communicates them clearly, respects her partner's individuality, and looks for ways to build something meaningful together, she brings a powerful quality into the relationship: direction. And direction gives love somewhere to go, because attraction asks, "Do I want you?" Connection asks, "Do I understand you?" But partnership asks a deeper question: what can we create together? That is where romance can become something enduring. The strongest relationships are not necessarily the ones with the most dramatic emotions. They are often the ones where two people consistently choose each other, support each other's growth, protect each other's dignity, and work toward a life that means something to both of them. Love is not simply about finding someone who makes your heart race. It is about finding someone with whom you can build, grow, learn, laugh, struggle, recover, and continue moving forward. When two people discover that their relationship isn't merely a place to receive love, but also a place to create value, meaning, and purpose, they begin to experience something deeper than attraction. They begin to experience partnership. And partnership is not about one person completing another. It is about two people who are already whole choosing to walk in the same direction and making the journey better because they are walking it together.